At 9:45 a.m. on the 42nd floor of Apex Media, the most important project of the year was underway. Only 15 minutes remained before the final submission deadline for the Project Phoenix promotion review. The entire creative department was terrifyingly quiet. The hum of the central air conditioning buzzed in everyone's ears. It was as if someone had hit the mute button on the entire office. Yet the most intense conversations were happening through furtive glances. And I was the focus of this silent exchange. I wasn't touching my keyboard. I wasn't looking at my screen. I just sat quietly at my desk, my fingertips unconsciously tracing the cold casing of a silver flash drive on my desk. Inside that drive was the perfect proposal I had traded my life for in a past existence. In this life, it would serve as the epitaph I had so carefully prepared for my rival. Well, if it isn't our star creative Chloe. What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? A sharp voice cut through the office quiet. The speaker was Amy, Stella's most loyal follower. She stood over my desk, arms crossed, with an undisguised look of smug satisfaction on her face. The deadline's in, what, 15 minutes? Don't tell me you pulled an all-nighter just to give up. Then again, I guess you know you can't compete with Stella. Admitting defeat early, I suppose that's a smart move in a way. I slowly looked up and met her gaze calmly. You don't need to worry about my business. Oh, I'm not worried about you, Amy retorted, her voice just loud enough for the entire department to hear. I just feel bad for the company, giving someone the best resources, only to have them drop the ball at the last minute. Not like our Stella. She's not just brilliant, she's a good person. Even last night, as late as it was, she was still thinking about bringing you a late-night snack. Her words were like soft-spoken jabs, each one hitting its mark. I heard a few muffled snickers from the desks around me. Just then, a familiar perfume wafted closer. Stella, holding a cup of coffee, walked over with an elegant stride, perfectly timed to interrupt Amy's performance. Amy, what are you talking about? She chided gently, though there wasn't a trace of anger on her face. She looked more like she was soothing a naughty kitten. She placed the coffee on my desk, then turned to me, her expression immediately shifting to one of deep concern. Chloe, hey, are you okay? I just heard Amy. Are you in some kind of trouble? It's almost 10. Your proposal. I looked at her perfectly made-up face. It seemed like every pore was part of the act. I forced a weary smile and answered in a hoarse voice. It's nothing. My computer just blue-screened last night. A lot of the data and models need to be completely redone. I don't think I'm going to make it. As I spoke, I saw a flash of pure, uncontainable ecstasy in Stella's eyes. She hid it well, quickly masking it with a thick layer of concern. She rushed to my side, knelt, and took my hand in hers. Her palm was warm, but her tone was urgent, as if she were my closest ally. How could this happen? You have to hurry. There are still a few minutes left. Do what you can, just don't give up. Have you forgotten all those nights we worked late together? Did you forget we promised to stand on that presentation stage together? Her words were full of infectious passion, as if we truly were comrades in arms. But all I felt was a churning nausea in my stomach. All those nights we worked late together. Oh, I remembered. I remembered the nights I stayed up until dawn, cracking a difficult technical problem, while she would casually post a picture to her social feed, a shot of my exhausted profile with the caption, "My heart breaks for my hardworking friend. We've got this," before heading home for her beauty sleep. Stand on that presentation stage together. I also remembered. In my last life, this was how she had used the fruits of my labor to crush me under her heel, only to turn around and sentence me to death with the most innocent expression. She had framed me for plagiarism. I was suspended by the company, blacklisted by the industry. My parents' hair turned white overnight from the shock. And after countless nights of waking up from nightmares, I finally let her push me to the edge, to the rooftop of this very 42-story building. The wind was strong, nearly blowing me off my feet. She stood opposite me, smiling like a blooming poppy, beautiful and deadly. "Chloe, do you know where you went wrong?" she asked, tucking a strand of windblown hair behind her ear, her tone as gentle as if she were sharing a secret. "You went wrong because you actually thought hard work pays off. In this world, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and the smartest woman wins." My proposal. I choked out, the words representing the last shred of dignity I had left to live for. What? Your proposal? She laughed. The moment I copied it from your computer, it became mine. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. All your backups in the cloud, all the drafts and process files? I just accidentally, permanently deleted them for you. See how thoughtful I am, saving you the pain of a pointless struggle. Her words were the final dagger, piercing through my already shattered heart. I took a step back, and my foot found only empty air. The feeling of weightless freefall hadn't even faded when I snapped my eyes open. I wasn't in a cold morgue. I was staring at the familiar ceiling of my apartment. My phone alarm was buzzing insistently on the nightstand. The screen clearly displayed the date. October 28th, 7 a.m. Presentation day. I had been reborn. After an hour of deathly silence, I accepted this unbelievable reality. Then, an emotion mixed with monstrous hatred and extreme calm flowed like lava beneath my frozen heart. Stella, you taught me the most important thing. This time, I'm not going to work hard. I'm just going to enjoy the show. My thoughts snapped back from the hellish memory to the present. I looked at the sincere face in front of me, slowly pulling my hand away. My voice was filled with a resigned defeat. Forget it, Stella. There's really no time. I lose this round. Congratulations. The director position is all yours. I played the role of the loser perfectly, every word dripping with reluctance and despair. The effect was immediate. A flicker of triumphant relief crossed Stella's eyes. The colleagues who had been watching from the sidelines finally relaxed. A few irrepressible, quiet cheers and the clatter of keyboards signaled my official defeat. Don't say that, Stella said, standing up, her tone laced with a hint of tough love disappointment. I hate seeing you like this. She continued, I'll go get you a strong black coffee. You have to pull yourself together. Even if there's only 1 minute left, we can't give up. With that, she turned and strode purposefully toward the break room in her 3-inch heels. To me, her silhouette radiated the joy of someone heading to their coronation. I didn't move. I just stared at the unfinished document on my screen, waiting for the final judgment. I knew this cup of coffee was the most critical part of her plan. It would, in an accidental way, extinguish my last sliver of hope. Sure enough, not 3 minutes later, Stella returned with a mug. Her steps were a bit rushed, causing the coffee to slosh with her movements. She walked over to my desk, an encouraging smile on her face, and was just about to hand the mug to me. Stella, you have a call. Just then Amy, who had been watching us intently, called out. At the same time, she unintentionally stood up from her chair and shifted her body. Stella instinctively turned to look at her phone, her body twisting slightly. In that exact instant, her elbow collided precisely with the back of the chair Amy had just placed in the middle of the aisle. Ah! With a short cry, Stella stumbled violently. The mug flew from her hand. The scalding hot latte traced a perfect brown arc through the air, and every last drop splashed onto my laptop keyboard. Sizzle. A faint electrical crackle sounded. My laptop screen flickered twice and went completely black. The rich aroma of coffee mixed with the acrid smell of burnt electronics quickly filled the air. The entire office fell into a dead silence. Everyone was stunned by the sudden turn of events. Oh my God, her laptop is fried. It's really over for her now. Whispers buzzed like mosquitoes. Stella's face was a textbook display of shock, panic, and guilt. She fumbled for tissues on the desk, trying in vain to wipe away the coffee that had already seeped between the keys. Her voice was thick with unshed tears, which began to fall in large drops on command. I'm so sorry, Chloe. It's all my fault. I really didn't mean to, she cried, not forgetting to shift part of the blame to her useless teammate. Amy, why did you have to stand up right then? Amy immediately caught on, her face a mask of regret. I'm sorry, Stella. I'm sorry, Chloe. I was just trying to tell you your phone was ringing. I didn't think this would happen. The two of them performed their duet, making the accident seem completely seamless. I stared blankly at the black screen, unable to say a word. To anyone watching, I must have looked like I had just suffered a devastating blow, frozen from head to toe. But only I knew that my heart was as still as an ancient well. I slowly lifted my head, my eyes empty as I looked at the tear-streaked face of Stella. My lips trembled slightly, as if I wanted to say something but couldn't make a sound. My silence was the perfect script she needed. Don't panic. Everyone, don't panic. There must be a way. Stella forced herself to stop crying. Her eyes red as she took on the role of a calm in a crisis commander. Chloe, don't worry. Let me think. There has to be a way. She paced anxiously, her brow furrowed. Her performance of desperately trying to find a solution moved more than a few people in the room. Even Chris, the senior designer who was usually neutral, cast an appreciative glance her way. Suddenly, as if struck by an idea, she stopped in her tracks, her eyes lighting up. Right. My flash drive. Like someone grasping a final lifeline, she rushed to her desk, pulled an exquisite silver flash drive from her handbag, and ran back, shoving it into my hand without another word. Chloe, listen to me, she said, gripping my hand so tightly it felt like she might crush my bones. But her eyes were shining with an astonishing light. I made an encrypted backup of my final proposal this morning, just in case. It's on this flash drive. Go now. Go to the public computer next to the conference room. Change the name on my proposal to yours and submit it. Her words hit the quiet office like a bomb. Everyone gasped. What? She's giving Chloe her own proposal. Is she crazy? This is for the director position. Amy was the first to rush over, grabbing Stella's arm. Stella, you can't do this. This is the proposal you spent countless all-nighters on. Why should you give it to her? Shut up. Stella violently shook off Amy's hand, her face a mask of unprecedented resolve and magnanimity. I made this mistake, so I have to take responsibility for it. What's a director position? My friendship with Chloe is more important than anything. I can't stand by and watch her lose this opportunity because of my mistake. Her words were powerful and deeply moving. A few sniffles could be heard in the office. Several of the younger female colleagues were already red-eyed, clearly won over by Stella's noble character. If I hadn't personally experienced her venomous heart, I might have applauded her myself. I looked down at the cold flash drive in my palm. This was the real guillotine she had prepared for me. In my past life, she had used this exact method to destroy my reputation. The proposal on her flash drive had been tampered with beforehand, embedded with a hidden macro that tracked all changes. Every edit I made would be meticulously recorded, becoming the ironclad proof she would use to accuse me of plagiarism. And in this life, I lifted my head, my eyes finally welling up with grateful tears. My voice trembled with emotion. Stella, why are you so good to me? Don't say another word, she cut me off, her face set with an unwavering determination. Go. It's 9:55. There are only 5 minutes left. If you don't go now, you'll really be too late. Go. She practically used all her strength to push me out of the crowd and toward the hallway leading to the conference room. I stumbled forward a few steps. At the corner of the hallway, I turned back and gave her a deep look. In the middle of the crowd, she was mouthing the words, "You got this," her face a picture of angelic, pure innocence. And on my face were tears of overwhelming gratitude. We exchanged a knowing look across the crowd, each of us playing our roles to perfection. The hallway to the conference room now felt like a path to judgment under my feet. Behind me were the complex gazes of the entire department. Ahead was the opening act of the grand drama I had carefully prepared for Stella. I didn't go straight to the public computer by the conference room door as she expected. Instead, I slipped into an empty restroom at a deserted corner. In the mirror, my face was as pale as paper, tear tracks still visible at the corners of my eyes. I looked like a pitiful soul pushed to the brink by fate. This look was perfect. I turned on the faucet. The cold tap water washed over my hands, and my racing heart slowly began to calm. I took my phone out of my pocket, my fingertips trembling slightly with excitement. I opened a triple encrypted folder named Drafts. Inside lay a single presentation file. This was the real Project Phoenix I had prepared for Stella. In my last life, during the research phase, I had discovered a hidden algorithm loophole on a social media platform called Vibe. Using this loophole, one could build an incredibly flashy and provocative user growth model, with predicted data reaching an astonishing 300%. Any client seeing such a proposal would sign on the dotted line without hesitation. At the time, I was thrilled by the discovery and pulled 3 all-nighters to create what I thought was a perfect B plan. But during the final risk assessment, I keenly realized that a growth model dependent on a platform loophole was no different from building a castle on sand. The moment the platform patched the vulnerability, the entire project would instantly collapse. So I decisively abandoned that plan, shelved it, and turned to developing the A plan, the one that, while less dazzling, was stable and reliable. And one of the clearest memories in my reborn mind was this. In 1 week, Vibe would undergo an unprecedented, major version update, completely closing this loophole and all other backdoors. This B plan was a time bomb wrapped in the world's sweetest candy coating. Stella, you love taking shortcuts, don't you? This time, I've paved a shortcut for you straight to hell. I took a deep breath. Using the company's internal network, I airdropped the B plan file to the desktop of the public computer outside the conference room. After that, I completely wiped all traces of the file from my phone. Then I smoothed my messy hair, making sure I still looked like the dazed and distraught Chloe. Walking out of the restroom, I went straight to the public computer. A few colleagues from other departments were already in line to use it, but seeing my red, tear-filled eyes, they tactfully made way for me. Thanks, I whispered, sitting down. I slowly inserted Stella's silver flash drive into the USB port. The drive icon immediately popped up on the screen. I didn't open it. I knew the moment I did, a preset screen recording software would automatically launch, capturing my every move. I just hovered the mouse over the flash drive icon, my hand trembling as if I were making a difficult decision. Time ticked by. 9:58 a.m. The administrative assistant behind me leaned in and whispered, "Chloe, 2 minutes left. The CEO and the others are already inside." Okay, I said as if startled back to reality. This was it. I took a deep breath and as quickly as I could, dragged the file named bplan.pptx from the desktop into Stella's flash drive. The system instantly brought up a dialog box. The destination folder already contains a file named sfinal.pptx. Do you want to replace the file? My gaze fell on the replace option. My past suffering, my family's misfortune, my desperate leap from the rooftop. Everything coalesced into this single moment, this single click. My fingertip pressed down hard on the left mouse button. Done. I pulled out the flash drive, my heart pounding so violently in my chest it felt like it would burst from my throat. It wasn't from nervousness, but from the thrill of revenge, a wicked yet exhilarating excitement from personally pushing my enemy into the abyss. I stood up and walked quickly to the conference room door. This time I didn't hesitate. I pushed open the heavy door that separated 2 worlds. Inside, the highest echelons of Apex Media were all present. Seated in the center was the group CEO, Mr. Pierce, a man in his late 40s with eyes as sharp as a hawk's. At that moment, everyone's gaze fell on me, the uninvited guest, like a spotlight. Stella was already seated in the front row, in the presenter's seat. When she saw me enter, a flicker of smug mockery crossed her eyes. In her mind, the flash drive in my hand was the trophy of her impending victory. I ignored all the stares and walked straight up to her. Under the scrutinizing gaze of CEO Pierce, I placed the flash drive that would decide both our fates gently on her desk. I leaned in and whispered in a tearful, frail voice that only the 2 of us could hear. "Stella, thank you. But I thought about it the whole way here, and I can't do this. This isn't my work. I can't use it to get a promotion. This opportunity should have been yours from the start. I'm sorry I couldn't live up to your kindness." My voice was filled with the clarity and reluctance of someone who had just won a moral struggle. Stella was completely stunned. She had probably imagined 1,000 possibilities, but she had never considered that I would pull a last-minute, moral high ground retreat like this. But who was she? She was Stella. Within 2 short seconds, she understood the key takeaway. My actions wouldn't affect her victory at all. In fact, they would only elevate her kindness and greatness to the extreme. She wouldn't just win the position, she would win everyone's hearts. A true, genuine smile of victory finally graced the corners of her lips. "Chloe, you." She wanted to continue her performance, to say a few more pleasantries, but I had already straightened up, giving her no more chances. I turned to face Mr. Pierce and the other executives on the main stage and bowed deeply. Mr. Pierce, members of the board, I am deeply sorry. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly throughout the room. Due to personal reasons and inadequate preparation, I am unable to present my best work. To avoid wasting everyone's valuable time, I have decided to formally withdraw from this promotion review. After saying this, I didn't give anyone a chance to ask questions, nor did I spare Stella another glance. I walked straight to the most inconspicuous seat in the last row, the observers section, and quietly sat down. The conference room fell into a strange silence. Everyone was baffled by my move. Finally, it was CEO Pierce who broke the silence. His deep-set eyes rested on me for a full 3 seconds before he spoke slowly, his voice betraying no emotion. Very well. In that case, the review will proceed as scheduled. Stella, you may begin. Stella, as if waking from a dream, immediately stood up, bowed elegantly to the stage, and flashed a flawless smile of humility and confidence. She picked up the silver flash drive from the table, as if it were a queen's scepter. She walked past me toward the spotlighted presentation stage. As she passed my seat, her steps faltered for a fraction of a second. She gave me a fleeting, condescending look filled with pity. Her eyes seemed to say, "Chloe, thank you for your foolishness and for making this so easy. You've lost completely." I looked up, met her gaze, and gave her an incredibly calm smile. The giant projection screen at the front of the room lit up. Stella inserted the flash drive into the podium's port and expertly found the PPT file I had replaced on her desktop. When the 4 gilded, calligraphic words Project Phoenix appeared on the screen, accompanied by a stunningly dramatic opening animation, a wave of low murmurs and impressed gasps filled the room. Stella turned to face the audience, her face radiating a certainty of victory, and began the most important presentation of her life. I sat quietly in the dark corner of the back row, a ghost watching the radiant woman on stage. I watched as she used the deadliest poison I had personally prepared for her to win a round of thunderous applause. The stage was set, the lights were on. My dear Stella, please enjoy the most brilliant and final moment of your life. The noose has already been silently slipped around your neck, and all I have to do is be a quiet spectator, waiting for the executioner's moment to finally arrive. The heavy, soundproof doors of the conference room slowly closed, shutting out all the noise and light from the outside world. I sat in the last row, in the deepest corner of the shadows, like an audience member who had bought a ticket but wanted to remain unnoticed, coldly observing the one-woman show about to unfold under the spotlight. Stella was completely in her element. She held a small laser pointer, her posture ramrod straight behind the podium, her face wearing that perfectly practiced smile, a blend of professional confidence and humility. In her world, I and all the morning's drama had become insignificant stepping stones on her path to the throne. Her gaze swept over every executive on the stage, expertly avoiding the direction where I sat. Distinguished leaders, good afternoon. My name is Stella, from Creative Team A. Her voice was clear and pleasant, amplified by the high-quality sound system to every corner of the room. Today, with great excitement, I present to you the annual integrated marketing proposal our team has tailor-made for Regal Beauty, Project Phoenix. As the name suggests, our goal this time is not merely to help the client with a routine product launch. It is to help this classic American brand, with nearly a century of history, completely break free from its constraints and be reborn from the ashes in the new consumer era, through a disruptive and precise market campaign. Her opening was flawless. It stated the project's core objective while immediately elevating the proposal's strategic importance, grabbing the attention of everyone in the room. I saw Ms. Rollins, the notoriously picky and harsh VP of marketing, subconsciously sit up straighter and nod slightly. The slide changed. On the screen was a visually stunning, modular market analysis chart I had personally designed. The complex generational shifts in consumer behavior, the dynamics of domestic and international competitors, social media sentiment trends, and market growth opportunities were all clearly presented with clean color blocks, lines, and dynamic data. Stella began her analysis of market pain points, her pacing impeccable. Through a deep analysis of over 100,000 consumer samples, we've found that Regal Beauty's biggest challenge is not a lack of product quality. On the contrary, its quality is highly regarded by consumers. The real problem is a severely aging brand image. In the eyes of the core 18 to 25-year-old consumer group, classic also means traditional. Reliable is synonymous with boring. Simply put, it lives on their mother's vanities, but can't find its way into their daughter's shopping carts. Our primary mission is to shatter this deep-rooted stereotype. Her presentation was masterful. She cleverly packaged the cold, dry data from my proposal into a series of vivid, illustrative stories, making her delivery lively and engaging. She even quoted 2 users directly from the market research report, making the analysis feel incredibly authentic and relatable. So, facing fierce competition from international giants like Estée Lauder and Pat McGrath Labs, as well as up-and-coming K-Beauty and J-Beauty brands, where do we find our breakthrough? She asked, artfully building suspense. She scanned the room, then clicked the laser pointer, her voice filled with the passion of someone who had just discovered a new continent. The answer is right here. On the screen, a huge, eye-catching logo for Vibe instantly captured everyone's attention. It was the short video social platform most popular among young people, with over 500 million daily active users, known for its unique, almost mystical smart recommendation algorithm that made it a traffic goldmine both loved and hated by all brands. That's right. Vibe is the main battlefield for our core campaign, Stella announced with unwavering confidence. After months of research by our team, analyzing over 1 million viral videos and reverse engineering the algorithm, we discovered that Vibe's recommendation system has an extremely powerful, yet largely unexploited, emotional resonance weight loophole. Simply put, the platform disproportionately and massively amplifies content that triggers strong, positive, collective emotions in users, such as national nostalgia, cultural pride, and intergenerational affection. This is our nuclear weapon. She began to elaborate on the core strategy of the dazzling, but deadly B plan I had constructed. Our core campaign is named the American Memory Awakening Plan, and we've divided it into 3 phases. Phase 1: Memory Seeding. We will collaborate with 100 ordinary people, aged 15 to 70, to film their real stories with Regal Beauty. This will include a factory worker from the 1980s buying her first cold cream with her first month's salary, a mother in the 1990s applying that perfect wedding day red lipstick to her daughter before she walks down the aisle, and a Gen Z girl secretly using her mom's lipstick for her first makeup experiment. We will capture these moments, which carry the collective memory of generations, in high-quality, cinematic short videos and launch the first wave of saturated, precision-targeted ads on the Vibe platform. To enhance her persuasiveness, the screen began playing several demo videos I had pre-produced. The warm, vintage color palette, carefully selected nostalgic background music, and the sincere, unpolished narration of ordinary people immediately created a powerful emotional atmosphere in the room. I saw that even the normally stoic director of administration seemed to have a glint of moisture in his eyes. And this is just the beginning of the campaign. Stella's tone rose again, a strategic smile playing on her lips. The real tipping point is our second phase, Vision Storm, and the user growth model we specifically built for it. The presentation clicked to its most crucial page. A stunning red curve, showing perfect exponential growth, shot across the screen like a rising dragon, captivating every single person in the room. For any executive carrying the weight of KPIs, this chart was lethally seductive. By precisely exploiting the emotional resonance algorithm loophole, our model conservatively predicts that the first wave of memory seeding will generate over 50 million effective impressions for Regal Beauty's official account within 1 week, and at least 3 million high-value, targeted followers. But that's not all. She deliberately paused, creating a bit of suspense. Once everyone's curiosity was piqued, she continued in a tone that was almost prophetic. The most disruptive aspect of this model is its ability to self-optimize and iterate. When the first massive wave of traffic comes in, the model will immediately conduct a secondary deep analysis of the new followers' user profiles, engagement data, video completion rates, and comment keywords. Within an hour, It will automatically optimize and adjust the content mix and user tags for the second wave of ads, creating a perfect, exponential traffic feedback loop. With each cycle, our traffic acquisition cost will decrease exponentially, while the user purchase conversion rate will rise exponentially. She pointed her finger at the number marked in bright red at the very peak of the curve, her voice trembling slightly with sheer excitement. Our ultimate goal is, within the 3-month campaign period, to help Regal Beauty achieve a complete brand image revitalization, establish an unshakable position as a leader in American heritage brands among Gen Z, acquire 10 million new active users, and achieve over $50 million in online sales, representing a year-over-year growth of over 300%. A gasp finally broke the silence in the room. 300% growth. It was a number that would make any client sign a multi-million-dollar contract on the spot. A number that would cement any advertising agency's legendary status in the industry. I saw the CFO, Mr. Lee, a man known for his conservative and rigorous approach who scrutinized every budget request, take off his glasses, rub his eyes, and put them back on, leaning forward to stare intently at the data model on the screen, as if trying to see through it. Ms. Rollins, the VP of Marketing, even praised her out loud. If this model can actually be realized, it's revolutionary. Stella, how did your team do it? This is incredible. Stella immediately returned a modest smile. Thank you, Ms. Rollins. This is mainly due to our team's long-term, in-depth research into the Vibe platform, and perhaps a little bit of luck. Her answer was seamless. It showcased her team's professionalism without sounding arrogant, making her seem very likable. Amy, sitting in Stella's original seat, was beaming with pride, her face glowing as if she were the one on stage receiving the accolades. She even remembered to throw me a provocative and contemptuous look during the chorus of praise, the curve of her lips a silent taunt. I still ignored her, remaining as still as a statue. Stella's performance continued. She methodically laid out the detailed budget allocation, the day-by-day execution timeline, and the so-called risk mitigation plan. Of course, this risk plan was just a few inconsequential, generic clauses I had casually written in the B plan, such as influencer collaboration risks, negative PR monitoring, and so on. The real, fatal risk that could bring the entire edifice crashing down was perfectly hidden beneath the dazzling data model. So, to summarize, Project Phoenix is a high-return, high-efficiency, and fully risk-managed perfect commercial loop that integrates top-tier creativity, precision strategy, and revolutionary technology. I believe it will not only help Regal Beauty achieve a new life, but will also become a beacon, a landmark case for Apex Media and the entire advertising industry this year. Stella delivered her closing statement. She took a slight breath and bowed deeply to the stage. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. The room was quiet for a moment, as if digesting the massive amount of information. Then it erupted in thunderous, enthusiastic applause. The applause was 10 times more fervent than what I had received in my previous life from my stable A plan. Because this B plan, far more than the safe but unimaginative A plan, was more seductive. It better stirred the ambitions and desires of the decision-makers in the room. Ms. Rollins and several other VPs led the applause, their faces showing undisguised admiration and excitement. Incredible. A truly genius idea. Combining heritage sentiment with an algorithm loophole so perfectly, the new generation is truly formidable. This emotional resonance weight loophole, how did our marketing department never notice it? Stella, your team has scored a huge win. If this plan succeeds, we're guaranteed to win the grand prize at the Clios this year. Our company's position in the industry will be untouchable. The praise was endless, engulfing Stella like a tidal wave. She stood at the podium, smiling elegantly and appropriately, gracefully accepting everyone's compliments and congratulations. She was like a queen returning in triumph from an epic battle, savoring her most glorious moment. She knew she had won. Won so completely, so indisputably. The applause lasted for nearly a minute before gradually subsiding. However, the CEO, Mr. Pierce, seated in the center of the main stage, hadn't said a word the entire time. He hadn't applauded. He just watched the radiant Stella on stage with his deep-set, unreadable eyes, as calm as an ancient well. He kept his fingers interlaced, resting them peacefully on the conference table, as if the thunderous applause and praise had nothing to do with him. This subtle but weighty silence caused the fervent, almost boiling atmosphere in the room to cool down rapidly and discreetly. All the executives subconsciously stopped their praise and turned their attention to Mr. Pierce, awaiting his final verdict. Everyone knew that everything before this was just a prelude. Mr. Pierce's approval was the decisive seal of ultimate authority. A very impressive presentation, Stella. Mr. Pierce finally spoke. His voice was low and steady, like the overtones of a cello, betraying no obvious emotion. The creative concept is very bold. The blueprint for the plan is very ambitious. I personally admire that. His affirmation immediately brought an even brighter, more humble smile to Stella's face. She bowed slightly, her voice tinged with just the right amount of excitement. Thank you for the compliment, Mr. Pierce. This is the result of our entire team's tireless work, especially Chloe, who contributed a great deal in the early stages. Even at this moment, she didn't forget to mention my name, using a magnanimous gesture to perfectly maintain her forgiving and generous persona. I like ambitious young people, and I like ambitious proposals, Mr. Pierce continued. His gaze shifted from the dazzling presentation slide and landed directly on Stella's face, like a precise spotlight. But you must understand that the more ambitious a plan is, the greater the risks that we may not be able to bear. The air in the room began to feel heavy and tense. The smile on Stella's face froze slightly, but she was clearly prepared for this. She replied confidently, Mr. Pierce, please rest assured, we have made extremely detailed preparations for risk control. In the appendix of the proposal, we have established a 3-tier risk control mechanism, covering everything from automatic warnings for budget overruns, to potential issues in influencer collaborations, to monitoring and responding to negative social media sentiment. We have detailed, quantifiable execution plans for all of it. I'm not talking about those. Mr. Pierce waved his hand dismissively, bluntly interrupting her. Those are conventional risks that every proposal includes. His body leaned forward slightly from its relaxed posture against the chair back. This subtle movement instantly made his presence intensely intimidating. I'm asking about the foundation of this plan. It's bedrock. He tapped a long finger rhythmically on the smooth conference table. This whole house of cards you call Project Phoenix, your beautiful growth curve, your perfect traffic loop, your promised 300% growth, is all built on a single premise: the loophole. The so-called emotional resonance algorithm loophole on the Vibe platform. Mr. Pierce's words were not fast, but each one fell like a heavy, ice-coated stone into the lake of everyone's mind, sending out chilling ripples. A tiny, almost imperceptible bead of sweat appeared on Stella's temple. She forced herself to remain calm and replied, Yes, Mr. Pierce. Our team has tracked and tested the mechanics of this loophole for months. We can confirm that it is very stable, and there is no short-term risk of it being actively patched by the platform. Short-term? Mr. Pierce, sharp as a hawk, seized on the word. He pressed on. How short is short-term? 1 month, 3 months, or a year? As the project lead, you must give me a clear time frame. Well, Stella was stuck again. This question was already touching the limits of her knowledge. In the proposal, I had not written anything about the specific duration of this loophole, because I knew it had no duration. It was a time bomb with a 7-day countdown, set to be precisely detonated. Mr. Pierce, as we all know, the algorithm of any internet platform is not static, she began, trying to bluff her way through with generic industry jargon. But based on the professional judgment of our technical staff, an underlying weight mechanism like this, which affects the core recommendation logic, usually has strong continuity and stability. The platform won't easily make disruptive changes because that would affect the entire content ecosystem. Therefore, we judge that our plan has an absolute safety window of at least 6 months. That's more than enough time for us to complete the core blast-off phase and establish the brand's own traffic moat. Her answer was quite clever. It sounded logically sound, successfully shifting the question from the highly uncertain, will the loophole be patched, to the more proactive, we can outrun the patch. Several of the executives in the room, seemed to find this answer acceptable. After all, in the fast-changing internet market, no one could predict anything with 100% certainty. Ms. Rollins even nodded in agreement. However, Mr. Pierce did not let it go. His eyes were like a sharp scalpel, seemingly intent on dissecting Stella's glamorous, professional words layer by layer to expose the empty, barren core beneath. He was silent for a full 10 seconds. For Stella, standing on stage under his scrutiny, those 10 seconds must have felt like a century. The air in the room seemed to have been sucked out, solidifying around them. Finally, Mr. Pierce spoke again, his tone seeming to soften slightly. Fine. Let's temporarily trust your team's professional judgment and assume we have a 6-month window, he said slowly. Then I have one last question. A purely technical one. He paused, and in an instant, his gaze became incredibly sharp, like two beams of cold light piercing straight into Stella's eyes. Your entire user growth model is built on this algorithm loophole. It's the foundation of a 100-story skyscraper. So my question is simple. For this all-important foundation, what are the results of your back-end data stress test? I need to know, under simulated extreme market volatility, for example, a competitor launching a devastating price war, or more extremely, the platform suddenly undergoing a fundamental, unannounced restructuring or emergency update of its core algorithm. How does your model perform? Where exactly is its breaking point? The moment this question was asked, I saw the color drain from Stella's face. It wasn't the paleness of ordinary nervousness, but the lifeless, ashen gray of someone whose blood had been instantly drained. Stress test. Breaking point. For someone who actually creates proposals, these were the most basic, most core concepts. For her, they were probably like an alien language from another dimension. She was a genius at packaging, performing, and plagiarizing. But for the complex data models and technical logic at the core of the proposal, which required countless days and nights of calculation and deduction, she was completely ignorant and had no desire to learn. She had memorized all the talking points from my proposal, memorized all the flashy conclusions, but she couldn't memorize what wasn't there. Because this B-plan, this trap, had never undergone any so-called stress test. Its very existence was a shoddy piece of work waiting to collapse, with no safety redundancies whatsoever. Oui, Stella's lips moved, a meaningless, hoarse sound escaping her throat, but she couldn't form a single complete word. Her brain must have been running at a frantic pace, trying to scrape together any professional-sounding buzzword from her pitifully small vocabulary of marketing terms to bluff her way through. But no one in the room was a fool. They could all clearly see her panic and guilt. The faces of Ms. Rollins and the other executives who had just been praising her turned extremely strange. Seeds of doubt had sprouted in their minds, and were growing at a visible rate. Amy, sitting in the audience, was so anxious her face turned red. She kept trying to give Stella signals with her eyes, her lips silently mouthing something. But I knew it was useless. Not even a miracle could save her now. What's the matter? Mr. Pierce's voice now held a note of undisguised, cold inquiry. Is this a difficult question to answer? For a top-tier project with a budget of over $8 million, the stress test of the core model should be the most basic, most preliminary work. You don't need to explain the process. You just need to tell me the result of the test. His relentless questioning was like a precise, heavy hammer blow, completely shattering Stella's already fragile psychological defenses. Oui, she stammered, her eyes darting around frantically, avoiding Mr. Pierce's gaze. Our team, of course, conducted a comprehensive assessment. The result of the assessment, it was within expectations. She stammered and stuttered but couldn't produce a coherent thought. Her guilt-ridden appearance had already made the one true answer painfully clear. She had no idea what she was talking about. She was just spouting nonsense. Mr. Pierce's face finally showed an expression of extreme, undisguised disappointment. He slowly leaned back into his large chair, his voice devoid of any warmth, leaving only a cold, metallic clang. I see. You didn't do a stress test. Or, to be more precise, you don't even know how to conduct one. You don't even know why it's important. This sentence was like an invisible, powerful bolt of lightning, striking Stella squarely on the head. Her body visibly trembled. Her fingers, gripping the edge of the podium, turned white from the force, and she almost lost her balance. "No, that's not it, Mr. Pierce. You've misunderstood." She tried one last, futile struggle. I just felt that such technical details weren't suitable for today's presentation." "Enough." Mr. Pierce cut off her pale excuses with a single, cold word. The conference room fell into a deathly, suffocating silence. Even the air seemed to have solidified. Everyone's gaze was like a searchlight, focused on the pale, trembling, pathetic woman on the stage. All the glory, all the honor she had built up through her perfect performance, was shattered into dust in that moment. In the midst of this suffocating, prolonged silence, Mr. Pierce's sharp, hawk-like eyes slowly, like a precision radar, swept across the entire room. They passed over the front row of executives, frozen in fear and anxiety, and finally, with unerring accuracy, landed on me, on the person sitting in the shadows in the back row, who had been ignored by everyone. His voice wasn't loud, but it rang out like a sharp ice pick, clear in everyone's ears. "Chloe." My name, spoken by CEO Pierce, was like a stone dropped into thick, stagnant water, creating huge, strange ripples in the silent room. Swish. Almost simultaneously, as if controlled by an invisible hand, everyone's gaze snapped from the crumbling Stella on stage to me, the one who had already withdrawn from the race, the one everyone had written off as a loser. Those looks were filled with an even greater shock, confusion, and a flicker of excitement, the kind that comes from anticipating a dramatic reversal. Stella whipped her head around as if stung by a scorpion, her eyes a mixture of horror and a deep sense of foreboding, staring at me as if she had seen a ghost. Her slightly dilated pupils told me everything. She was finally starting to feel afraid. Amy, sitting in the audience, had her mouth agape, wide enough to fit an egg, the color completely drained from her face. Under the gaze of the entire room, I stood up calmly and composedly. I ignored everyone's stares and met the deep, unreadable eyes of Mr. Pierce on the stage. I answered respectfully, "Mr. Pierce, I'm here. What are your thoughts on the question I just raised about the stress test?" Mr. Pierce asked, his expression neutral, his question a pure, unbiased inquiry. I didn't answer immediately. I began to walk, slowly, step by step, from the safe shadows of the back row toward the bright light of the judgment stage. My heels clicked on the polished floor, a crisp, rhythmic sound that was unnervingly clear in the silent room. Each click was like the ticking of a death watch, precisely stepping on Stella's already taut, near-breaking nerves. I could feel her body trembling uncontrollably as I got closer. I walked right up to the podium and stood beside her, less than 2 feet away. I could even smell her expensive perfume, now mixed with the sour scent of the cold sweat her fear had produced. Only then did I slowly turn to face the stage, to face the man who held everyone's fate in his hands. "Mr. Pierce," I began, my voice clear, calm, and with a hint of cool detachment that was amplified by the microphone. "Regarding the question you just asked, my personal view is that the question itself is wrong." "Oh." Mr. Pierce's eyebrows arched almost imperceptibly, a flicker of genuine interest finally showing on his face. "And why is that?" "Because this proposal, this model, fundamentally does not require, and is not worthy of any form of stress testing." My words were like a sharp knife, unexpectedly shattering the delicate balance in the room. A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience. "What does she mean? How arrogant. No testing? That's incredibly irresponsible to the client and the company." Even Stella looked at me as if I were insane, probably thinking that in my desperation and bitterness, I was resorting to a suicidal, scorched earth tactic to drag her down with me. A flash of relief even crossed her eyes, because my words sounded so absurd and unprofessional. I ignored the rising tide of discussion around me and continued, looking at Mr. Pierce in a flat, factual tone. "The reason it doesn't need testing is because its final outcome is 100% predetermined. The user growth model, based on the so-called emotional resonance algorithm loophole on Vibe, doesn't have a breaking point that can be calculated. It has a specific date, set in stone, down to the day." I paused, scanning the increasingly confused faces in the room. Then I dropped the real bomb that would decide everyone's fate. According to absolutely reliable inside information I have received, Vibe will be conducting a global, simultaneous update next Wednesday, that is, in 7 days, internally codenamed Morningstar. It will be the largest version and algorithm update in its history. The core of this update is to completely restructure its 3-year-old underlying content recommendation algorithm, and to patch all known backdoors and loopholes that could affect the platform's traffic distribution fairness. The emotional resonance weight I mentioned is at the top of the list of things to be patched. My voice was calm, but its contents were like a silent, yet immensely powerful, heavy bomb, detonating in the conference room. Everyone was stunned speechless by the sudden news. Ms. Rollins, the VP of Marketing, was the first to cry out, "Chloe, is this information accurate? This is top-level intelligence. How come none of our channels in the marketing department have heard a whisper of this?" The source of the information involves my personal channels, which I need to keep confidential for now. I replied calmly, my tone leaving no room for doubt. But I can vouch for its authenticity with my entire 5-year track record at Apex Media, and with my entire future career. My gaze, like 2 cold beams of light, turned to the woman beside me, whose face was now as white as the wall. In other words, if we approve this Project Phoenix and according to its plan, invest millions of dollars in the first massive wave of promotion, then in just 7 days, the algorithm loophole that is our foundation, the very bedrock of this entire proposal, will be completely sealed by the platform. The seemingly perfect traffic loop we built will instantly break. All the money we've invested before seeing any return will evaporate like water poured into a desert. I paused, deliberately giving the executives time to process this catastrophic consequence. Then, in the calmest, cruelest tone, I delivered the final, cold verdict. At that point, this proposal will not bring our client, Regal Beauty, 300% growth. It will only bring a direct financial loss of at least $8 million, the complete collapse of a century-old American brand, and an irreversible, devastating blow to Apex Media's reputation in the entire industry. Silence. The entire conference room fell into a dead quiet, even more complete and chilling than before. If Stella's fumbling had only made them think the plan was flawed, the truth I had just revealed declared it a complete and utter fraud. A massive scam capable of sinking the entire company. Everyone was too scared by the disastrous, almost apocalyptic scenario I had painted to say a word. Ms. Rollins and the other executives who had been applauding the proposal now looked no better than Stella. I could clearly see a fine sheen of cold sweat on Ms. Rollins's back. Stella's body finally gave out. She swayed violently, her hands gripping the edge of the podium so tightly her knuckles were white, just barely keeping herself from collapsing on the spot. You're lying. You're slandering me." She finally managed to squeeze out a hoarse, baseless shriek, born of extreme shock and fear. "This is defamation. You couldn't complete your own proposal, so you fabricated this terrifying lie to frame me." Mr. Pierce, don't believe her. Even at this point, she was still trying to struggle, to blame everything on my jealousy and revenge. "Framing you." I laughed, a cold, undisguised scorn in my voice. "Stella, do you still not get it? You don't even understand the basic logic and risks of the proposal you're holding in your hands." My gaze shifted back to Mr. Pierce, my tone returning to a calm statement of fact. "Mr. Pierce, I admit, I did not submit my final proposal today. My work computer was, very unfortunately, destroyed by an accidentally spilled cup of coffee just before the deadline." I deliberately emphasized the word, accidentally, and shot a meaningful glance toward the creative department section of the room. All the colleagues from my department subconsciously held their breath, vividly recalling the dramatic accident that had occurred in the office that morning. But I changed my tone. Before my computer was destroyed, I had a habit of synchronously recording all my research, data analysis, model construction, and risk assessments in text format on my personal phone's notes. I took my phone from my pocket, calmly unlocked it, and opened the notes app one had prepared. Then I looked up at the technician in the corner. "Could you please project my phone screen onto the main screen?" The technician hesitated, instinctively glancing at Mr. Pierce on the stage. Mr. Pierce's face was hidden in shadow, his expression unreadable, but he gave a slight nod. The technician immediately got to work. Soon my phone's interface was projected large and clear for all to see. On the screen was a meticulously organized set of notes. From the first day of the Project Phoenix launch, my entire thought process, every data analysis, every model construction, was clearly timestamped and recorded. I swiped up on the screen in front of everyone, as if flipping through an irrefutable book of evidence. Finally, I stopped at the entry for the B-Plan trap. There, in bold black font, it clearly stated, B-Plan, high-risk model test record. Model core, based on Vibe's emotional resonance algorithm loophole. Pros, data model is extremely seductive, with massive short-term traffic potential. Highly attractive to clients. Fatal flaw, risk level, extremely dangerous. Loophole is non-structural platform may patch at any time without warning. Once patched, model will completely fail, and project will be a total loss. Conclusion, reject. Strictly forbidden for use in any formal proposal. Below this concluding text, I had also included a link to a technical analysis article from a professional international forum, discussing the potential risks and upcoming adjustments to Vibe's algorithm. And the date on this note was 3 weeks ago. The evidence was irrefutable. This was the final, unassailable blow I had prepared for Stella. As you can all see, I said, holding my phone like a calm executioner reading a verdict. The so-called genius proposal that Ms. Stella presented to you today with such eloquence and confidence is nothing more than a high-risk test product that I had already designated as a rejected failure 3 weeks ago. Because at its root, it is a complete and utter commercial trap, one that is more than capable of dragging this company into the abyss. My gaze fell for the last time on Stella's ashen, stunned face. Stella, do you still think I'm framing you? Or is it that you were completely unaware that you were about to serve a cup of poison potent enough to kill everyone in this room? No, impossible, this is impossible, the flash drive is mine. Stella completely broke down. She shook her head incoherently, her eyes vacant, repeating those few illogical words. All her proud disguises, all her clever tricks, were torn to shreds in the face of ironclad facts and undeniable evidence, revealing the ugly, incompetent truth beneath. Just then Mr. Pierce, who had been silent, slowly stood up. He didn't look at Stella again, as if she were nothing more than a worthless, disgusting puff of air. His gaze fell directly on me. His expression was extremely complex. There was scrutiny, surprise, curiosity, and finally, what seemed to be a flicker of fleeting, imperceptible approval. He made no comment on the matter, nor did he ask about the feud between Stella and me. He simply gave an order to his assistant in an authoritative, unquestionable tone. First, immediately notify corporate security to revoke all of Stella's work privileges, access cards, and internal network accounts. Second, notify the legal and HR departments to immediately form a special task force to investigate this matter. I want a full report within 3 days. Then he turned to all the executives in the room, his voice as cold as a Siberian wind. Today's meeting is over. Adjourned. With that, he straightened the bottom of his suit jacket and, without looking back, strode out of the conference room that had been filled with such dramatic twists. With his departure, the tightly wound string in the room finally snapped. 2 tall security guards who had been waiting outside the door entered expressionlessly after receiving the assistant's call. They stood on either side of the collapsed Stella. One of the guards spoke in a formulaic tone. "Miss Stella, please come with us." Stella's body was like a boneless heap of mud, slumped limply on the cold floor, her mouth still unconsciously murmuring, "Impossible." She was finished. Finished in the most complete, public, and humiliating way possible. Amy, in her seat, was white as a sheet, trembling like a leaf in the autumn wind. She buried her head in her hands, wishing the floor would open up and swallow her whole. And I, under the complex gazes of all my colleagues, a mixture of awe, fear, and curiosity, calmly locked my phone screen, put it back in my pocket, and then, just as calmly, turned and walked out of the judgment hall that had once decided my life and death, and now had witnessed my revenge. The moment I walked out of the conference room, time seemed to slow down. The hallway, which should have been empty, now had several colleagues pretending to be on the phone, their ears strained to listen. When they saw me, their gazes darted away like frightened rabbits, only to sneak back for another look, a mixture of awe and fear in their eyes. I ignored them and walked straight back to the creative department. This was the true eye of the storm. I pushed open the glass door. The office, which should have been a hive of activity, was now eerily silent. Everyone had stopped what they were doing. Dozens of pairs of eyes shot toward me like cold searchlights, locking onto me. Amy sat at her desk, her face pale, her hands trembling uncontrollably. When she saw me, it was as if she had seen a vengeful ghost clawing its way out of hell. She quickly buried her head, trying to shrink into the shadow of her computer monitor. No one spoke. No one dared to be the first. The air was thick with a viscous substance called fear, making every breath feel heavy. I calmly walked through this jungle of stairs back to my desk in the corner, the one with the coffee-destroyed laptop. I pulled out my chair, sat down, and began to slowly, methodically pack my things. My movements were light and deliberate, like I was performing a ritual. I stacked the professional books on my desk neatly one by one. I placed the scattered pens back into their holder. I emptied the drawers of 5 years of accumulated memories from countless late nights, trinkets, snacks, drafts, and placed them one by one into a cardboard box I had prepared. My calm stood in stark, oppressive contrast to the dead silence of the room. Finally, someone couldn't take it anymore. It was Chris, the director of Creative Team B, a man I was on relatively good terms with. He hesitated for a long time before cautiously walking over and stopping by my desk. "Chloe, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice dry. "I'm resigning," I said without looking up, placing a small cactus into the box. My tone was as flat as possible. "Resigning?" he exclaimed. "Why? After what happened today, you're the hero. You not only exposed Stella, but you saved the company from a huge loss. Mr. Pierce is definitely going to promote you. That director position, who else is qualified for it now but you?" His words voiced what everyone in the room was thinking. Yes, Stella had fallen. The vacant director position should logically, rightfully be mine. This was the ending everyone assumed was written in the script. I looked up at his confused face and smiled. "Chris, thank you for the kind words. But I don't want the position." "But why?" he pressed, completely baffled. "We all saw how much you put into this project. Now that you finally—" "It's pointless," I interrupted him, my voice still flat but with an unwavering finality. "If this is how I have to get that position, then it holds no meaning for me." My words left Chris stunned and plunged all the eavesdropping colleagues into a deep confusion. They couldn't understand. They thought everything I did today was a meticulously planned counterattack to reclaim the director's job. They thought I would be like the heroine in a palace drama, rightfully ascending to the throne of power and glory after vanquishing my rival. But they were all wrong. From the moment I was reborn, my goal was never that cold position, one that required endless internal conflict and vigilance to maintain. All I wanted was justice. A clean ending where the wicked were punished. Now that the ending was set, it was time for me to exit. I placed the last folder in the box, stood up, and prepared to leave the place where I had fought for 5 years, the place that had buried all the innocence and dreams of my past life. Just as I turned, a figure rushed toward me like a bolt of lightning and then, with a thud, fell to her knees. It was Amy. She clutched my legs, sobbing hysterically, her face a mess of tears and snot, completely stripped of her usual arrogance. "Chloe, I was wrong. I was so wrong," she cried, slapping her own face with loud, sharp smacks. "It was Stella. She made me do it. She said if I helped her, she'd make me associate director when she got the promotion. The coffee, that was her plan too. She made me act it out with her. I was just an idiot, blinded by greed. Please, talk to Mr. Pierce, tell him to spare me. I don't want to be fired, I have a mortgage to pay." Her wails were pathetic and piercing, filled with a primal fear of the future. The colleagues around us watched with complex expressions, contempt, pity, and a shared sense of dread. I looked down coldly at the woman sobbing at my feet. In my last life, after Stella fell, she was the first one to turn on her. Now, she was just repeating a performance she had long since perfected. I didn't speak. I just forcefully, inch by inch, pulled my leg out of her grasp. "Your future is something you should discuss with the legal and HR departments. Not with me." I left her with those cold words and, without looking back, walked out of the creative department, carrying my box. Behind me, Amy's cries grew even more desperate. The elevator doors opened slowly. A man was standing inside. It was Mr. Pierce's assistant, a young man with gold-rimmed glasses who was always impeccably dressed. He didn't seem surprised to see me with the box. He just nodded politely. "Ms. Windsor," he said, "Mr. Pierce would like to see you in his office." Mr. Pierce's office was on the top floor, the 42nd, with a commanding view of the entire city's financial district. When I walked in with my box, he was standing with his back to me, gazing out the massive floor-to-ceiling window at the urban forest of steel and glass. His silhouette was tall and steady like a mountain. "You're here." He didn't turn around. His voice was calm. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Pierce?" I placed the box on the carpet by the door and answered quietly, "Sit." He gestured to a set of armchairs by the window. I walked over and sat in the chair opposite him. A pot of steaming dragon well tea was already on the table, its fragrant steam curling into the air. Mr. Pierce turned, sat down across from me, and poured me a cup of tea himself, pushing it gently toward me. "Try it. This year's pre-Qingming harvest." His tone wasn't that of a boss to a subordinate, but more of an equal, a respected adversary. "Thank you, Mr. Pierce." I picked up the cup but didn't drink. "Decided to leave?" he asked, looking at the box by the door, getting straight to the point. I nodded. "Why?" He looked me in the eyes, his own deep-set eyes seeming to see through everything. "Because of Stella? Or because the company disappointed you?" "Neither." I shook my head, met his gaze, and said frankly, "I just feel we're not on the same path." Mr. Pierce seemed interested in my answer. He leaned forward slightly. "Oh, how so, Mr. Pierce?" I put down my cup, deciding to be more direct. "You already knew there was a problem with Stella's proposal, didn't you?" Mr. Pierce neither confirmed nor denied it, just watched me quietly, signaling for me to continue. "This morning, when I announced my withdrawal, you didn't ask why. When Stella was presenting that fatally flawed plan, you didn't interrupt. You waited until her performance reached its peak before demolishing her with a seemingly casual, but deadly technical question." I looked him in the eye and said word for word, "You weren't giving me a chance. You were giving her a chance. You wanted to see just how far she could stretch this lie. Or rather, you wanted to see the true caliber of the person who originally created the plan she stole." A flicker of surprise, something I'd never seen before, crossed Mr. Pierce's eyes, quickly replaced by a genuine, heartfelt admiration. "You're even smarter than I imagined." He no longer denied it. He admitted it frankly. "That's right. I received an anonymous email late last night." He took out his personal phone, opened an email, and turned the screen toward me. The email was simple, just one sentence. "Beware of Vibe. Beware of Stella's Project Phoenix. It's a trap." The email was sent late the previous night. "You sent this email," he stated, not as a question but as a fact. "Yes." I didn't deny it. This was the final safety net I had prepared for myself. I couldn't pin all my hopes on Mr. Pierce's on-the-spot acuity. I had to plant a seed in advance, a hook that would make him suspicious. "So, everything you did in the conference room today was not just for Stella's benefit, but for mine as well," Mr. Pierce said, leaning back on the sofa, lost in thought. "You not only wanted to destroy her reputation, but you also wanted me and all the other executives to see clearly the vast, insurmountable gap between you and her." "I was just stating the facts," I replied calmly. Mr. Pierce smiled. It was the first real smile I had seen from him all day. "Chloe, you're a born strategist. You're calm, decisive, you know how to plan, and more importantly, you understand human nature. Apex Media needs someone like you." He extended an olive branch. "The creative director position is yours. Not only that, I can give you 5% of the company's shares and a seat on the core executive board. All I ask is that you stay." It was an offer no professional could refuse, a skyrocket to the top. The director position plus company shares meant I would go from a senior employee to a partner in this top-tier advertising firm. If the me from my past life had heard this, I probably would have fainted from excitement. But the me now just listened quietly, and then gently shook my head. Why? Mr. Pierce's brow finally furrowed. Give me one reason. Mr. Pierce, you are an excellent chess player, I said, looking at him earnestly. You know how to use your pieces, how to set up the board, and how to sacrifice a pawn to save a king at the critical moment. Today, Stella was your pawn, and so was I. You used her greed to test my abilities. Then you abandoned her without hesitation and chose me, the more valuable piece. My words were blunt, even offensive, but there was no anger on Mr. Pierce's face. On this chessboard, no one is unsacrificable. Including myself, he replied calmly. I understand. I nodded. Which is why I'm choosing to leave the board. I stood up and bowed deeply to Mr. Pierce. Mr. Pierce, thank you for your recognition today. But I'm tired. The last battle has drained all my energy. I don't want to be part of any more games. I just want to be an ordinary person, to live a simple life, one where I don't have to constantly be on guard and scheming. With that, I gave him no chance to persuade me further and turned toward the door. As I picked up the box containing 5 years of my youth, my hand about to touch the doorknob, Mr. Pierce's voice sounded behind me again. Chloe. I stopped, but didn't turn back. The doors of Apex Media will always be open for you. Thank you. I breathed out the 2 words, then pushed the door open and walked out. Outside, the sun was shining brightly. After I left the company, the fallout from the Stella incident reached me in bits and pieces through gossip from former colleagues. The legal department's investigation was more shocking than anyone had imagined. In her 3 years at the company, Stella's core creative concepts for more than a dozen projects, large and small, were almost entirely plagiarized or stolen. She was a parasite, cleverly feeding on the talent and work of every gifted colleague around her, then packaging their achievements as her own. She stole not just from me, but from colleagues in other teams, and she didn't even spare the interns' ideas. They found an encrypted folder on her computer, neatly categorized, containing the unfinished proposals and creative drafts she had collected through various means. She called it her inspiration library. And the coffee spilled on my laptop was no accident. The legal team pulled the security footage from the break room, which clearly showed Stella adding a colorless, odorless, mildly corrosive cleaning agent to the coffee. The chemical wouldn't harm a person, but it was fatal to precision electronics. She had never intended to give me a chance to submit my proposal. In the end, the company fired Stella for gross violation of professional ethics and company policy, and for causing significant potential damage. They also filed a lawsuit against her, seeking compensation for all reputational and financial losses. The company issued an industry-wide notice, blacklisting her permanently. She was handed a death sentence in her profession. As for Amy, because she confessed to everything during the investigation and cooperated with evidence collection, the company, noting she was only an accomplice, gave her a probationary warning. But her career was, for all intents and purposes, over. The storm I had started had ended in the most complete and brutal way possible. Many people said I was the only winner in this war. They said my methods were brilliant, my mind sharp, that I had single-handedly taken down the company's cancer and given all the bullied, hard-working people a taste of vengeance. But I knew there were no winners in this war. When I saw the news and saw Stella's parents, their temples gray, being surrounded by reporters outside the courthouse, tearfully apologizing to the public, I felt no thrill of revenge. Only an unspeakable exhaustion. When I heard that Amy, unable to bear the pressure, had resigned and moved back to her hometown, disappearing without a trace, I felt no sense of satisfaction. I had destroyed their lives, and in doing so, I had said goodbye to my former self. I had completed my revenge in the most extreme way, and I had also completely severed all ties with my past. I left the bustling, cold metropolis where I had lived for nearly a decade. I moved back to my hometown, a small riverside town in the south. With the savings from my past few years, I opened a small cafe by the river in the old town, selling only pour-over coffee and homemade desserts. I named it Rebirth. The shop wasn't big, just 5 or 6 tables. I didn't hire any staff, I did everything myself. I woke up naturally every day, then opened the shop. In my free time, I'd sit by the window, read a book, listen to music, or just watch the small boats drift by on the river outside. I watched the pedestrians come and go, leaving shallow and deep footprints on the stone-paved road. Life was simple and slow. I no longer had to stay up until 4 a.m. for a presentation. I no longer had to scheme and maneuver through office politics. I no longer had to wear a thick mask every day to deal with backstabbing and veiled threats. I could finally be myself again. An ordinary person who was happy when the sun was shining, who was content with the aroma of good coffee. One afternoon, the shop was quiet. I was behind the counter, trying to create a new honey blossom latte, when the wind chime on the door tinkled. I looked up and saw an unexpected person walk in. It was Mr. Pierce. He had shed his signature, expensive, handmade suit for a set of casual clothes. His hair was combed simply, making him look less sharp and imposing, and more refined and approachable. "Mr. Pierce," I said, surprised. "You probably shouldn't call me that anymore," he smiled, walking to the counter and sitting down naturally. "Right now, I'm just a passerby who wants a cup of coffee." "What brings you here?" I asked, curious, as I started to make his coffee. "I'm here on a business trip. Thought I'd stop by and see you," he said, looking around my shop and nodding. "Nice place. Very peaceful." "It's nothing special. Just a small business." "No, I think it's wonderful," he said, looking at me with a sincere envy I had never seen before. Sometimes, having the courage to step off the chessboard requires far more wisdom than winning the game. I placed the honey blossom latte I'd just made in front of him. "Try the new special." He picked up the cup, took a small sip, then closed his eyes to savor the flavor. It was a unique taste. He opened his eyes and looked at me, saying seriously, "It has the sweetness of honey blossom and the bitterness of coffee, but they blend together perfectly. Just like life." I smiled. Outside, the last rays of the sunset streamed through the wooden window frames, casting a warm, soft glow in the air. My phone vibrated gently in my pocket. I took it out and saw an anonymous text message. It was just a simple sentence. "Thank you. And I'm sorry." The message was from an unknown number, but I knew who sent it. I didn't reply. I just calmly read the message, then deleted it. I looked up and saw Mr. Pierce smiling at me. I smiled back at him, a genuine smile of relief and release. Yes, life is like this honey blossom latte. It has its bitterness and its sweetness, but in the end it all settles into peace. And I had finally found my own.